Hey up. For no particular reason, just figured I'd do a video. A few things are floating around my head. Most of them around meaning and why I think this is kind of going to be an existentialist, nihilist philosophy video. So just so you know what you're getting into before I start yabbering. But yeah. I've just been thinking, I'm a bit pissed off at the minute basically, without going into the intricate details of why, which are boring and laborious and pretty non-interesting really, in a lot of ways. But I find in life that, for myself anyway, one of the real hardest struggles of life itself is this constant struggle for definitions of meaning and creating meaning, and meaning being created by the work that you do, the labour that you do, the things you enjoy in your spare time, etc, etc. So one of the key things I struggle with, certainly in my life, is a constant conflict between a very kind of strict definition of meaning and like I said, the awareness that everything is essentially meaningless. The findings of nihilism. That basically we build metaphysical spaces in the mind to create meaning. There's so many different ones of them. Kind of like the tunnel, the reality tunnel idea, I guess, essentially. Which Anton Wilson came up with, kind of chaos idea of there is no meaning but that which you create, which is kind of an obvious moot point almost in some respects in terms of what philosophy these days. And it's kind of obvious really when you think about it. There is no, basically meaning is moulded out of this, of nothingness essentially in the sense of the mind. But then the real struggle obviously I guess comes in the process of, well, so you kind of, you got this blob, which is actually nothing as well, and you try and make something out of it. So you're just crafting this blob, and you're just messing around with it, seeing what happens and that. But then somehow out of that kind of chaotic process, something emerges, which seems to have meaning, even though it's sort of subjective meaning. And it kind of takes on the veneer of objectivity, I suppose. Oh, it was quite funny actually, because I've been having an argument with my mate back about this. Long story, drunk, on the top of our house, got like this rooftop terrace thing, and we won't get into too much detail, but we just basically started having an argument over subject. It basically came out of an argument over, she was saying that everything's subjective, and I was saying actually there is an objectivity to physical systems. That's where the specific argument came about. She said everything is purely subjective, essentially is what she was saying, I think, but it was misconstrued or misinterpreted what she was actually saying. So feel free to spam me if you see this. But yeah, meaning is a purely subjective thing, I think, in most respects, in terms of what if you take it that, like, there's different high levels of a meaning, I suppose, in terms of how objective and subjective it is. Like the meaning of this, we get into kind of like meta language, I suppose. What's the meaning of Pringles? I mean, you could dive into that with like several different sentences of words and all the rest of it. But ultimately, it's just a thing we produce because we want to. So I guess the objective meaning would be people like crisps. So they made crisps, they produced crisps, and then some market has made a Nietzsche face on the Pringles. This is alright actually. I'm going to try and do a philosophy comedy series if such a thing can exist. And obviously by the very nature of it being philosophy, it's rambling. So forgive me. Anyway, what else? I think finding meaning in life is an impossible task, and that's why it's so fun in a way. I think. This is impossible. You're never going to find the truth. You're never going to find all truths. Like if you look at it in terms of like set theory or sets, from all like Venn diagrams, you're going to have a certain amount of crossover. Like say with Venn diagrams, you've got like 3 circles or whatever. There's a bit of crossover where 2 sets join, which is like A, B. It's all computer science stuff basically. So you have like A set, B set, and you've got crossover. So I can't remember what union, that was it. Set A, set B, and then set C would be the union between those 2 sets of information. So you're going to have certain moments where kind of things feel that they have a concreteness to them, I suppose, which kind of creates a meaning in the synthesis in Marxist terms of that thesis and antithesis coming together into union. The Venn diagram thing. But as to whether it's actually, which in a sense I guess the synthesis is the actual meaning, the objectively anyway. The rest of it is all the subjective, objective clashing and fighting over small kind of, like kind of more like definitions in language, I suppose.
Science fiction horror film directed by Ken
It's really kind of. Anyway, I'm going to carry this on for a bit longer because I'm kind of getting into more interesting territory now, so I think I'll go on a bit more. So that's kind of that potentially is a abstract way of describing what meaning is essentially. It's a kind of subtle dance between objectivity and subjectivity that creates in the mind the perception that something's actually been reached, or a resolution to, and the limitations of language necessarily as well also make this hard to describe. I mean, probably the best way if you want to find ultimate truth or find God in inverted commas is probably have a intense meditative experience, or take magic mushrooms or take DMT. And I'm not advocating that, but by the way, I'm just saying that is one route that some people go down, the kind of psychonaut route of self-exploration and exploration of all these kind of deep philosophical issues and blah blah blah. It can be a decent way to unravel sometimes, to be honest. I mean, obviously I'm a bit mad, so what kind of way I unravel that madness or use it actually constructively, since I've got such a vast stream of consciousness that kind of can jump and dump around from idea, and then kind of find a kind of unity between all those things that is not always apparent to otherwise saner individuals. It's actually can be used as strip. Anyway, what I'm talking about. Essentially, that's what I'm talking about. It's kind of an existential position beyond the nihilistic. Nothing means anything. Which, in a way, I can understand the point of that, but like where I started off from this video, where nothing has an inherent meaning, but you can use that to build on. So yeah, existentialism, nihilism, blah blah. I've kind of gone through a kind of very muddled explanation of what that is. So nihilism obviously is nothing means anything at all. There's no meaning to life and that, which is alright. And it kind of, in some level, it's a position of purely objective void, I suppose, in some respects. But if you kind of use that as your guiding philosophy of life, it kind of becomes very destructive in some respects, unless you can flip it around to use that nihilistic awareness subjectively, I suppose. Which is what I'm trying to do now, basically. I've been working through nihilism for the last 2 years, basically. Mentally, spiritually, even in some ways. In terms of, I mean, I don't believe in Judeo-Christian God. I don't believe in monotheistic God. I don't believe in any of that baggage. I kind of feel that it's historical baggage, and it's I can't. Who was that comedian? Someone said it's just. Doug Stanhope just says it's dead people's baggage. Stop carrying it. That's kind of how I feel about most of it. I respect people who have a religion and whatever, like get on with it, fine. It doesn't bother me, but to me it's just kind of a ritual it's just the old ritual to kind of gain access to something which you have access to anyway, and you don't need to have like a priestly hierarchy. And that's probably part of the reason I kind of don't like religion in a lot of ways as well, especially organised religion, is that by its nature it's a triangle power structure. It's a hierarchy of control of most of the time it's patriarchy as well. And, well, obviously you've got like matriarchies in like Christianity, like with nuns and stuff like that. It's kind of more of a weird kind of repressive feminine control pyramid, I guess. But then ultimately that kind of, well, it's not really, because the Catholic Church essentially is definitely a patriarchy, because it's the Pope in charge, and we've never had a female Pope as far as I'm aware. So that's definitely a control. The control system of that is definitely Pope at the top, and then nuns probably at the bottom. Actually, it's the more kind of like in a micro sense, they're a matriarchy in their little community. But anyway, I'm kind of going off on one now. But yeah, I mean, I think essentially I'm kind of jumping around a lot now. This is kind of fun, but I think meaning is the hardest thing to define, and also paradoxically one of the most important things to define in human life. I definitely struggle with it at the minute. Like, I'm doing lots of things. I'm doing lots of creative bits and bobs, mixing around, like wearing a few different hats and that, and trying to struggle to find things, having lots of random friendships, having random relationships, random talking discussions with people, random meeting new people, meeting people outside of my comfort zone, which is always a useful thing, incredibly useful thing to do. I guess it's what Slavoj Žižek would describe as the other, or the other in Lacanian philosophy, which I don't know really much about Lacan, but as far as I'm aware, the other is just a projection of your unconscious shadow self, I guess as Jung would describe it. And I don't know how much Lacan kind of relates to Jung, but I know in Jung that the shadow, just all the shadow represents is just like the dark side of yourself. So, like, for example, if you were, I don't know, like an orthodox communist or something, then your shadow self would be like a fascist, for example. Or if you're like white middle class kind of educated male, then your shadow would be like a, I don't know, whatever, working class uneducated female, I guess. I don't know. It's probably a weird example, that. It probably wouldn't be that. It's probably a simplification of it. It's basically just like all the unconscious tendencies that you do, that are otherness. I think kind of butchered that description, but I don't know how. I'm kind of just trying to jump around with this, kind of make it a bit interesting, I suppose. What else? Part of the struggle for meaning comes from not learning not to struggle with it, really, to be honest, as well, and just go with the flow, essentially. To sound like a 1960s hippie. It's just kind of fuck it, really, and just go with the flow. Just like whatever happens. Don't be a dick to people, obviously. I mean, Nietzsche in his book Beyond Good and Evil, which you've got a copy of up there, talks about how you have to create your own morality, essentially. You make your own judgments. That's how I kind of see forming my own morality as a thing of, I'm going to take it in a case by case basis. My basic morality is informed by a Christian perspective, from the fact that I was brought up in the Christian church, not in a serious way. My parents are Anglicans. They didn't really take it that seriously. They kind of believe in the woolly kind of fluffiness of the idea of God, but kind of discount all the bad stuff, obviously, as a lot of people do, I think, and just so it's kind of a pick and choose religion, essentially, with the Church of England, I guess. But how I form my morality is from experience, and that's the best way to do it, I think. Best way to form meaning as well, I suppose. So morality is related to meaning in the sense that whatever morals that you choose to follow the most will end up defining a lot of meaning in your life anyway, or kind of create situations anyway that meaning can arise out of. So for me, my morality is kind of egalitarian, I suppose. I try and create things for myself, but then also make sure that other people benefit from those things as much as possible, and that I can get, if we're gonna get involved in creative projects, really get involved in interesting things or discussions that I have as many people as possible involved in those things. No one's ego kind of takes over too much or overbearing in any situation, and that basically everybody gets an equal say and kind of shit and blah 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 blah. So kind of losing my train of thought now. This is really interesting riffage on what meaning actually is, going into the whole stream of consciousness shite. I really enjoyed this, actually. I'm just taking my mind for a walk, took a trip take a trip down into the hyperlinked nexus of informational spirals, which is pretty much what the whole trip is, I guess. A snake eating its own tail forever. But yeah, I think that'll do. I've done a 15-minute. I just have to just dance a bit. Anyway, Noir Vortex, and this has been my funny philosophy on nihilistic morality. So, peace, fuck you, peace, fuck off. Fuck off, peace, fuck off.